the Mom Who Knows Nada. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mama Knows Nada podcast. Today, we are speaking to a doula. What is a doula? She's going to tell us. From here in St. Augustine, Florida. This is Jessica, and she's from Bellies, Boobs, Babies, and Bliss. She's the owner and founder. She's got quite a lot of things on her resume. So, Jessica, thank you so much for being here. So nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you. And thank you so much for this platform. This is great. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on pregnancies and births and how to make everything work in the way it was designed to.
Right. And I think it's really important to understand, for women to understand they have options out there for support and external help. A little bit about my background. I was in Dallas, 1,500 miles from friends and family, didn't know what to do, didn't know when I was going to be induced, or I was a high-risk pregnancy, blah, blah, blah. So ended up employing a doula, but didn't really know anything about it beforehand. So I think it's really important for women to understand that there are support systems out there, and they might be a little bit different or could be better than other things. Because, I know my mom did things differently than me. So I think it's really cool to highlight women and what we do and find other cool women to discuss the things I don't know anything about. So I want to jump in and ask you the obvious question. What is a doula?
Well, a doula is, the word doula comes from a Greek word that means mothering the mother. So doulas have been around since the beginning of time, and it's pretty fascinating. In Egypt, in the hieroglyphics on the walls, they show birth support, that mothers, when they were birthing, they were surrounded by their friends and family in the community, and these births were celebrated. And unfortunately, we've lost that celebration here in the States, but that's what a doula, that's what the word comes from, mothering the mother. And what does a doula do? Or should we go there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So a doula is a person of support, and that's really all that they are, is somebody who comes to you and helps you, guide you on the journey to wherever you want to go in your individual birthing practices. So, everybody has a different idea when they plan their wedding of location, who they want to attend, the whole overall vibe and feel of their wedding. It's the same thing that goes for a birth. So in a wedding, you have a wedding planner who knows all the great spots and all the great places and the good vendors. And essentially that's what a doula does. We know the hospitals, we know the staff, we know the nurses, we know the places. So in hiring a doula, it's helping mothers say, what's really important to you? What type of vibe do you want from your birth? It's very individual and very personal.
Nice.
So that's what the first initial consultation would be with a doula, would to say, this is what I'm interested in. This is the type of birth that I'm going for. What are your thoughts and feelings? So we're kind of like a personal trainer, if you will. We get you through it. And we run the race with you, and then at the end we give you all the glory, and you did it.
I like that analogy though, because I use a doula, but it was really put to me that clearly it's like a planner for your birth.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and because the wedding day doesn't usually go as people anticipate, and birth doesn't usually go as people anticipate, but
exactly.
I know for me, I'm in Dallas by myself. I cannot have a C-section. So we need to do everything and anything possible to make sure I don't have a C-section. I couldn't be, and everybody's different. But I had to be mobile. So I like that you put that. I also like how you take it back to Egypt and give that explanation about mothering the mother. I recently just wrote a blog about, a mom is born, because we put so much emphasis on the baby, but as a new mom, especially because in this transient world, someone who's away from their family, you don't have that support and you don't know what you're doing. And we all know it takes a village, right? To raise a kid.
Absolutely.
It takes a village to grow a mom too.
For people. Yes,
Yeah, whomever they
absolutely.
may be. I love that you said that. Now, let's talk a little bit about your journey into becoming a doula. How did you fall into the practice?
So it was kind of like it just fell into my lap, to be very
Mhm.
honest. I was in school to be an esthetician and a makeup artist. I was not here to, I mean, I always nannied my way, like I nannied my way through college, I nannied my way through high school. It was how I honestly supported myself. I
Mm.
grew up in a family with 6 kids, single mom, and I wanted to have the nice Guess jeans that everybody else was wearing. And my mom's like, if you want it, you better buy it. So that was my motivation. I was very financially motivated. And I loved kids. It was very natural and organic. And everybody used to joke in my family that Jessica always has a baby on her hip. So that's how it got started. And then, like, the first birth I attended was my brother's birth. And
Wow.
it was also the first time I had seen a baby being born, and it was such a huge privilege to see that. But on
Yeah.
the other side, it was my first time also witnessing obstetric violence, and it lit a fire within me. And then
Oh,
from there,
interesting.
I was working with a family, and they were going from one baby to two, and they
Hmm.
asked me to be a part of their journey as well. So then it was all word of mouth. I didn't even have a website back then, and again, I wasn't trying any of this. And then I ended up doing a ton of postpartum work and kind of transcended into postpartum as I got married. And
Oh, nice.
I started a nanny agency where I placed nannies, household helpers, household staff, really, and doulas and private lactation consultants. And it just went from there. But the agency was very hard to run as
Mm.
a mom that I was running solo. My husband traveled a lot and we were moving a lot at that time. So it was best that I closed the doors to the nanny agency and just
Mm.
focus more on doula work and lactation.
Mm.
And I was a mom at that point. So I really just wanted to get my hands dirty, if you will, a little more into doula world and taking it from there. But it's always been super easy. Like it just came, and word of mouth came every which way. And it's really just gone from there. It's really word of mouth.
That's pretty
Um,
awesome just to have that nice, like organic. It's almost like
yeah.
the doors keep opening and you're like, okay, I
Yes.
guess we'll just keep going through them like that.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. I'm like,
How's
if it's meant to be, it will find its way, and it will just happen
Sounds like
organically.
it
So
did. Now, for all of those, the births that you're present for, do you have to have any specific trainings? Like, what are the requirements to be a doula?
So, to be a doula, it is recommended that you obtain training. The training for doula work specifically is, depending on the organization,
Mm,
anywhere from 40 hours to 60 hours. I've seen up to 60 hours. My specific doula training was with Dona,
okay.
and I did Thursday through Sunday, and it was all day. Like Thursday was all breastfeeding. Friday we did a lot of like comfort measures,
Mm.
and it was like, if this happens, this is what you do. And it was also that. And then Sunday, as we got to Sunday, it was all business 101. So that part I really, really liked, because owning a doula business is not going to be like any other business that you
Mm.
run. There's lots of ins and outs to this industry that I think it's really important that doulas get set up for
Interesting.
success.
Mm.
So yeah, it's anywhere from 40 to 60 hours of training, and it's pretty in depth and very intense. You watch a lot of birth videos and you see a lot of babies and a lot of girl bits. So
Ah! I mean, after a while, it all looks the same, right?
oh
Everybody
yeah,
is just,
yeah.
it's
What
just a
you've seen one,
boob.
you've seen them all. Yeah, it's just the lady gardens and the bits and pieces. It
I
really doesn't alarm me anymore.
Oh, right. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's really funny. I have a friend who's a nurse and she's like anything that has to do with lady parts is like, she was in like a NICU nurse, and so she's just like, nothing surprises me anymore. I'm like, oh God, I don't know if I could look at that stuff all day. Now,
Nothing
what
surprises me anymore.
kind of tips or like tricks, or what kind of things do you do to support moms along their journey, specifically during delivery?
So I take an individual approach.
Mm,
So whatever is in our pre-birth work together and with the client,
mm-hmm.
I will go through with them what is really important to you, and I take
Mm.
notes. Kind of old-fashioned in that way, that I have like my birth book, and I
Oh,
take notes, and I reference my notes throughout her labor and delivery, just to make sure that I'm checking all the boxes
mm-hmm.
and doing everything that she wants and doesn't want. I get to know families on a very personal level.
Nice.
So some of the things that I will do for a mom is consider positioning. Is she in
Mm.
the right position? Is baby handling this position well? Do we need a location switch? Like, in real estate, how they say location, location. When you're in labor, location, location, it really does affect your mental space. And one of the things that I love to do, I love to get moms on the toilet. We call it the dilation station. It opens up that pelvis so that baby can come
Oh,
down and out.
wow.
And subconsciously, you will relax your pelvic floor. So when you're relaxed down there, helps you relax up here. I had one birth that I'll never forget this birth, but the nurses were a little too hands-on and a little too much. And mom, I can see it on her face that she's
Yeah.
getting very overwhelmed. So I was like, let's go to the bathroom. So I take her into the bathroom. I turn off the lights. I drop some lavender essential oil into the sink and fill it up with water, kind of make like a makeshift diffuser, if you will. I turn off the lights. I turn on some Colby Calais, turn on some,
Nice.
those candles that they're battery operated, so they're not
Yeah,
like the real deal. But
totally.
she like, I told her, like, go within, go to your space, go to your place, whatever that may be. I even turned on the shower in the bathroom so that she could have like that sound effect. This mom went from 4 centimeters with cervical lip, like it was just, everything was not working. And within an hour of being in that room, she went to full, like she was done, like 10 centimeters complete. She was ready to push.
Nice.
And when we reflected on this, and I said, like, what was your favorite part about your birth? Because I do think that birth should be enjoyable. It should be an experience that
Yeah.
not only changes you from the inside out, but also something that you're like, I'm a badass. Like I see that baby right there. I did that. Me, all me. I did that.
Amazing.
It's
Love it.
hilarious to think back, but she's like, I loved being on the toilet. And it really did do something for her. So that part, I very individual, but doulas have to be like 1 to 5 steps ahead in reading your
Mm.
client well and knowing that
Interesting.
we need to switch positions, switch locations, offer something else. Try the yoga ball, try the peanut ball. If we don't have an epidural placement, then our opportunities are endless. But I'm really
Mm-hmm.
big on positioning and setting the scene so that if we are in a hospital setting, it ain't gonna feel like one. You're gonna feel like you're cool, calm, collected in a spa, and everyone is taking care of you, and you are feeling all of this positive energy, but also a ton of love. Like just
Mm.
you have it, you got it, you're doing this, you're one step closer. Every surge that comes is
Mm.
one step closer to meeting your baby. So we keep our eye on the prize.
That's amazing. I love, like, there's so many things I want to comment on in that statement. Gosh, where do I start? I remember for me, I was induced. So
Mm-hmm.
I started having labor intensive contractions without dilating like 4 hours after my cervidil,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
a cervical ripening drug, ladies, just so you know. So at about like 6 a.m. or something, I got an epidural, and I was so exhausted. I didn't even like think
Mm-hmm.
to call my doula about like what I should do at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of like bummed in the long run because I feel like if I would have been able to like stand and have movement, like you say, I would have had a better experience instead of what it
Hmm.
was. Like it wasn't a bad experience, it just was interesting. Um, the other thing I want to, and I'm going to circle back to that in a second. I want to lose this thought. But the other thing I like that you said is, you know, there's so much fear around birth. Like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
you like, oh, are you gonna, is it gonna be okay? Like, how you feeling? Like every time someone else had said, and I'm thinking another podcast about how every time you go into a doctor's office, it's like, what could be wrong
Hmm.
instead of all the things that are going right. So by the time you get into your birthing space, whether it's home, hospital, what an external facility, whatever it is that you choose for yourself, you're like almost debilitated into thinking something's going to go wrong instead of like
Hmm.
you're saying being empowered by your capabilities and like this is you were born to do this, like you're, so I love that you touched on that. I think that's really important for women to realize that they are capable. We're made to do this. You don't need to be scared. Your body can handle it. I think my doula said you're given the baby your body can handle, and that was like
Totally.
reassuring for me. um
Yeah.
None of like my mom nor my sister, they all had c-sections, so I
Hmm.
was the first one in my like immediate family to like deliver vaginally. So the other thing I want to say for someone who's like in my position where you've had this epidural, you're kind of, it's your first time, you forget to reach out, it's too late, you've got the drugs. How can a doula help you in that situation to make your birth as much as you wanted, that you kind of like, now you can't because you can't stand up when you had an epidural, you're a hazard,
Right.
you can fall, right? So
Right.
how do you kind of like circle back and, you know, revisit that birth plan or that dream delivery system? What do you do in that situation?
So I have this little trick that I take a bed sheet and I twist it and turn it into a big circle like a donut. And just because you have an epidural, it doesn't mean that you have to stay on your back.
Mm,
You can move and kind of push mom up a little bit in her, you know, like you can make that bed, like move the
yeah.
back part up. So she's a little bit less reclined and more upright. And then I have her sit on this donut and it opens up the pelvis. So she's
Ah,
still going like this. And then her little butt bone, like your coccyx,
yeah.
is not, the baby's not going to hit his or her head on it because the donut kind of acts like a birthing stool.
Oh, interesting.
So
So that would have been
that's
really
one little
helpful.
tool.
I like
Yeah,
that.
that's one little tool that I do. But also putting mom on her side, busting out the
Mm-hmm.
peanut ball. And if we don't have a peanut ball, I just ask the nurse, can we get 7 pillows? Can we just get all the pillows and we'll start big and go small, you know? I always like to over ask because 9 times out of 10, they're going to come with 4 and 4 will work. So I pillow mom in between her legs to open up her pelvis, so that baby has optimum space to get down and out. And then we
Down and
do the
out.
flip. We do the flip. So she'll do 10 minutes on this side, 10 minutes on her right side, and then we, you know, continue to do the flip. That way baby can kind of wiggle his way down and out. So, I mean, just because she has an epidural, it doesn't mean that, you know, we're screwed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things that we can do. But I really love the peanut ball. I use a lot of spinning babies techniques, and I do recommend moms to watch the spinning baby videos. Make sure that your
Okay.
doula does have spinning baby training and know how. Spinning babies is awesome, and they have been very critical in my personal doula career and the doula or my outcomes that I've seen. So getting a peanut ball and doing, we call it flying cowgirl. Uh, Crazy name, but it works. And that's where mom's laying on her side and her legs are placed behind her. And it
Okay.
really, with the peanut ball, it really opens up her pelvis. And that works tons.
That's awesome. Oh, I wish I would have known these things. I'm sure I was told some of them, but like I just can't remember them at this point in time. Um, what do people misunderstand about doulas as a profession?
I would say the most, when I tell people I'm a doula, they first and foremost think that I deliver babies, and I do not. I am not a medical professional. I'm not a midwife. I'm not an OB. I don't do anything clinical. I don't check your blood pressure, and I sure as heck am not going to check your cervix. I don't go downtown. I don't. That's not my area. I don't go downtown. I'm more like mental, like up here. So I stick to this.
I love it. This is great.
But another huge misconception outside of everybody thinking that I deliver babies is that I don't need a doula. That's what my husband is for, or that's what my boyfriend is for, or my wife. And yes, like your spouse and your partner can be incredibly helpful, but how many births have they attended? Usually like one or two. And do they, are they trained on positioning? Does your birth partner know spinning babies? Do they have this in their wheelhouse? They typically don't. They don't know positioning, and they don't know, like the bathroom trick, like getting mom on the toilet. Yeah. A lot of dads would think, what, does she got to go poop? Like, what's the deal here? Like, why are we going to the toilet? And sometimes, yes, sometimes we do just need to empty that bladder. So, and I got tips for that too. Like, I've had a mom that she just could not pee, and baby was trying to come down.
Yes.
And her bladder was so full. I do keep my clients well hydrated. And baby was just hitting his little forehead on that bladder. So we did the bathroom trick, 2 drops of peppermint essential oil in the toilet bowl. And she was like peeing like a racehorse. That thing was so full. And it ended up working out great. Otherwise, because the nurse was like, "Oh, I can catheter you," and the mom was like, "Well, what? Like, what is that? Tell me more about the catheter." And I do encourage families when they're birthing, ask questions, ask what that is, what's the risk, what's the benefit,
right?
And yeah, sure enough, 2 drops peppermint essential oil, bam, took care of that problem real quick. But dads, they don't have the essential oil tricks. They don't have, I think with every birth that I attend, I learn something new, and I have another takeaway. So, but also I'm here to support dad too. This is just as much mom's birth as it is birth partner's birth. It's their birth too.
Yeah.
So I want to offer techniques and tips and tricks so that they can feel included in this birth. I don't want them sitting on the, like the couch and watching TV and feeling like they're just there but not participating. And they definitely have a place. And a lot of times, parents, they have a connection, a connection that is far stronger than anything I will ever have with the birthing person, the mom. And so when the spouse says, "Hey, babe, let's try this," and that can be so impactful versus when I say, "Hey, let's try this," because it's coming from somebody that she has a connection to. So I love to get birth partners involved, and I love to ask, what are your thoughts? What do you think? You know her best. You know her way better than me. I've spent maybe 10 hours with a client before we go into birth day. This person's like, they've been married for years, or they've been together for a long time. You guys have spent time together. You know her best. Right. So what do you think? I love to get birth partners involved. So I think that's a huge misconception, that a lot of moms think that doulas are somebody that takes away dad's experience, but in actuality, we add to the experience. I'm not here to take away anyone's birthing experience.
I would agree with that. I'm like, my husband was so nervous when I was giving birth. He was also really annoyed. He's British, so his match was on his football match, soccer, and he was like, "Could you hurry this up? I got a game to catch." But he was like, he did not want to see anything from the waist down, so he was very much holding my hand, making sure I was hydrated. Whereas like our doula was very much like, I was like, I think I have to pee, and I had a great nurse. I can't knock her, but some of the other people who rotated in and out be like, no, we just, and I was on, again, I had the epidural, so they did have a catheter in me, and I'm like, I feel a pressure, and they're like, how do you feel anything? was like, I do. Second
Yeah.
of all, and they had to empty my bladder 3 times while like my son was
Uh-huh.
coming out. So like to your point, but if my
Yeah.
doula wasn't there advocating for me
Mhm.
and listening to what I was saying, then things could have looked a lot different, you know? Like
Sure.
a full bladder changes your baby coming out or not.
It really does. It's
It's
something
in the
so
way.
little and simple, but yeah, it really can change the whole outcome of your birth. Just
Hmm.
something so simple as going pee.
Right? So
Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to point out, is like having someone there to support and listen to you is really essential. And
Mhm.
my husband didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect,
Yep.
you know. So having someone to kind of like guide us through this process was super helpful. And the
Mhm.
other thing was, by the time I was like pushing my son out, I could feel everything. And the nurses
Right.
were like, there's not a contraction coming. I'm like, oh no, no, no. It's coming. Ready?
I
Oh,
feel
now
it.
let the monitor catch up to me. Like, don't tell
Right.
me what I feel. Like,
Exactly.
like,
You
don't
know
tell me
your
what I feel.
body best.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's super important to point out, having somebody to help you advocate for yourself and to be a voice
Mhm.
when like, I mean, I was new to birth, so you have how many birthing situations under your belt? You're going to speak up before I am, because we're taught to trust our medical professionals. And yes,
Exactly.
they're incredible, but sometimes everybody is different. Just like every birth is different, every baby is
Yep.
different. Everybody needs something different to feel comfortable and safe in their birthing situation. So, really good points. Now, is there any other benefits that we haven't discussed that you want to bring up about having a doula in your birth space?
So there is one thing that I think is really cool is that there actually have been studies on families that have had doulas in attendance to their birth.
Mm.
And there was a quote from the American College of Gynecology, it's ACOG, and they were saying that you significantly reduce your C-section rate when you have
Mm.
a C-section, or I'm sorry, a doula, and you will less likely to have a C-section.
Nice.
Your labor will be shorter. And then there was a awesome, I highly recommend Evidence-Based Birth put out a huge piece about doulas and attendants and their benefits. So outside of like the anecdotal responses that we
Mm.
get from families that have had doulas, they were a lot of, one time I was at our community here has a food truck Friday,
Yeah.
and I walked past a family and they were pregnant, and they were talking about doulas, and of course my ears are like those little gadgets. And one of the dads was like, oh, we could have never done it without her. Like, she was so helpful and so great.
Oh.
So it's like we have the anecdotal pieces to this, that families that have had a doula did say that for the most part that this doula was very helpful and impactful in obtaining
Mm-hmm.
the birth outcomes that they were individually desiring. But we also have the science piece to this, and that
Mm.
there has been studies showing that your labor
No.
will be shorter, less likely for a C-section, less likely for interventions, and overall birth outcomes are substantially better when you have a doula in attendance.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's fun facts.
yeah,
That's
fun
awesome.
fact.
Did you
I'm a
like
huge
it?
nerd. I like live for this stuff. Like, I read a piece this morning, and it was a study that stillbirths are substantially reduced when mothers obtain care from a midwife. And I'm like,
Interesting.
huh, I would love to read more about that. I didn't get to finish the piece on that, but
Hmm.
like a midwife in attendance. So, I guess the model of care is just different, and the outcomes are
Interesting.
better. So,
Hmm.
circling back to another misconception about doulas is
Mm.
that we are like anti-hospital,
Mm.
and we only attend births that are like at home, or like this hippie organic experience, and that's truly not the case at all. I've attended births in many different areas, many hospital births, and when I'm there at a hospital birth, I want everyone to be friends, really. I want the best experience for my client. I do not want to be combative with a nurse or a doctor, because truth be told, I've been in a birthing situation, and our labor and delivery nurse came back and asked for my business card, and she
Oh,
ended up
wow.
hiring me for her birth. So if I came into someone's birth space and my, dukes are up and I come out guns a-blazing, it's not going to be good for me, because I'm painting the image of
Yeah.
doulas, and I never know who my next client is going to be. So, but that also being said, if I witness something that is not okay, such as obstetric violence and medical staff like demanding a mom, and not asking for consent, that is something that will be addressed, but in a very nice way, of course. Getting my
Yeah.
point across, but not trying to be a bee to anybody.
It's an art form, that
Yeah,
tactful.
yeah.
I'm not very tactful. So
I try. Like
Ugh.
I try, but doulas, we're here to support you in whatever birth you want.
Mhm.
And we really just want the best for you. So, whether that be a hospital or your house or a birthing center,
Mm.
and sometimes without wanting to, we end up with a car delivery. The Honda Odyssey got
Space?
blessed with some birth juju. That happens.
You can't plan it.
You can't plan it. Babies come when they want, how they want. This is their birth story. So we just have
Oh,
to give in and say, you win, babe. Like, you're little, but you're mighty, and this is how we're doing it.
aren't they such powerful little creatures?
Right.
When someone's looking for a doula as a birth partner, what kind of questions should they ask? What should they be looking for?
You want to make sure that you have a doula that has experience in your individual birth that you are seeking.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if you are desiring a birth at home, you want to make sure that you have a doula that has attended a lot of home births.
Okay.
If you are desiring, it's okay. Some moms say, I want that epidural hooked up in the parking lot. Like, don't waste no time on that thing. Like, get it going. Let's go. You want a doula that has all the tips and tricks on, okay, cool, you got an epidural placement. What can we do to get this to be shorter, favorable to baby, and also safe outcomes for mom and baby? So you want to make sure that you have a doula that has the experience. Definitely ask a doula, what is your experience level? How many births have you attended? If you are okay with being someone's third or fourth birth, that's okay. If that's something that we're really transparent about, that she is new to the game, and has a lot to learn. But one of the things that I think families hire me for is my experience level. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know that not every doula has 20 years and, all these births under their belt. So it's really whatever your comfortability is, but definitely ask a doula what her experience level is, and ask, any other credentials. If you are really, really desiring to breastfeed, how much breastfeeding knowledge does she have? Any credentials in that department? Because a lot of what happens at the birth does dictate the initiation of breastfeeding. So how do we facilitate that in best way possible and kind of rectify if anything comes our way? If we have a baby that's not latching and your nurse is not available because it's 3 a.m. and she has to do charting, and your lactation department is gone because they only work 9 to 5 in a hospital setting, does your doula have lactation credentials? And many times I've seen the nurse come in and she's like, oh, is baby latching? I'm like, yep, got that covered. They're like, good, because I don't know. So you never know what nurse you're going to get. Some of them do have lactation credentials and some of them don't. So if breastfeeding is important to you, I highly recommend hiring a doula that has breastfeeding credentials and knowledge in that department. And ask them also, how comfortable are you in my birth setting? Some doulas have white coat syndrome of their own.
Oh, interesting.
So if you, if that's something that you have, then, how comfortable are you in a hospital setting? How comfortable are you working with hospital staff? Things like that.
That's a good note. That's a really good note.
I do have questions to ask on my website as well. That I'm like, I love it when people ask me questions. Like, ask me anything. I'm an open book. You can ask me what I have for breakfast. I don't care. I think, the more opportunities for families to get to know their doula, that is critical, because you are going to be spending so much time together. You want to make sure that you guys are the best match for each other.
And that you can trust each other, and there's got to be
Absolutely.
some kind of connection or like good
Yep.
energy vibe, because otherwise it
Yeah.
just doesn't, it's not simpatico. Like, it's not going to be
Yep.
the best experience that it could be if you don't
Yeah.
feel like somebody can really speak on your behalf, if that makes any
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh my God.
You got to vibe.
Yes, you do have to vibe. Absolutely. What information do you think first-time moms are given that's like totally bullshit?
That they can't do it, that they're incapable, that you're going to be begging for that epidural. No. I've had moms honestly sleep through transition. So
Oh,
I think
nice.
it's all a BS lie. Like, this lie that you're going to need all of this stuff to have your baby, and you need the best team and the best doc with, a whole wall full of credentials. We've been doing this since the beginning of time, or we wouldn't have the human race. We have 7 billion people on this planet, and a lot of them don't give birth in a hospital. So, like, every week that we are pregnant with our baby, our body takes a step to birth and breastfeed. So to come and do 40 weeks of pregnancy and all of a sudden, can't do it. Like, who says I can't? Who says I can't? Because I have, like, how many generations behind me, and they all birth just fine. And, on a grand scale, generally speaking, our bodies are well designed to birth. So I think the most BS thing that we tell pregnant moms is that they're incapable and that they're going to need all of this stuff. And it's not true. Like, we truly are capable. We really, really can birth our babies. And we are deserving of a magical, badass, blissful birth that when we're 90 years old and we're sitting in that nursing home, I want my clients to be like, let me tell you my birth story. Let me tell you how I did it. I cut my own baby with my own hands. Like, I felt electricity that day. Like, you ever felt electricity? Oh, let me tell you how I did this. That's what I want. I want, like, you as a grandma to be like the badass grandma who has this awesome birth story. And we are all entitled to that. We don't have to have this idea that your birth is going to suck, because what if it has the capability to be magical? And you never get that opportunity. So, I think just don't succumb to the hype, and don't believe that you are a failure in any way, that you need all the stuff. Like, maybe you don't. Maybe you really truly can. And you never know what you're truly capable of doing until you at least just put one foot in front of the other and you try.
Amen. Amen to that. And that goes back to the whole thing about fear and like our medical world. Like, oh, we have to be scared. No, you don't. Like, it's just a new experience. If you look at things as we have new experiences every day that we don't even think about. So why should birth have this build up to anything other than, like you're saying, magical, blissful, like maybe even like transcendental, if you will. Like, it is like this crazy magical thing, and it obviously happens a lot, but there's other times when it doesn't get to come full term. So you should enjoy that beautiful little organism that made it 40 weeks and in your body. Like, we, as one of the smartest mammals on the planet, we sure have a very complicated birth structure comparatively.
We've done a wonderful job as a society, and like medically, we've done a wonderful job of convincing women that they don't know how to birth. And unfortunately, it's been to our detriment, because that elephant out in the African savannah is not, she's not like, oh, can I do this? She just does it. She just does it.
Is there anything you wish moms were told more about pregnancy and birth, other than they can do it?
I wish they knew that they had options. They totally have options. Not every birth has the medical requirement to be in a hospital. And a
That's
lot
a
of
good
moms
one.
have said like, oh, I didn't know that I could do that. Oh, yes, you can. A lot of moms, like when I go through the prenatals with my clients and I'm meeting with them, I ask them a lot of questions. I ask, do you want to catch your baby? Because you can. Do you want your spouse to catch your baby? Because he can or she can, whoever your spouse is. Like you truly do have options, and you can say no to anything and everything. When you examine risk versus benefit, you are entitled to a dignified birth. You can say no to everything. You have so many options, and a lot of those options come down to provider and place where you have your baby. So if you're low risk, baby is head down. If you're early in your pregnancy too, that's always the best. Explore midwifery. It's a completely different model of care, and they have pretty darn good outcomes. And their C-section rates are fairly low. So, give it a go, give it a try. See who's the local midwife in your area and interview them and see, again, who you gel with, because every midwife comes with their own personality and experience level. Not every birth has an obstetric requirement. So if you're low risk and you're healthy and you don't have gestational diabetes or anything that's a risk factor, explore your options and see where you land. At least when it comes to birth day that you explored all of your options, you took the steps, and you come from a place of being informed and saying, I did my homework and this is where I feel best. And that's where I'm going to land.
I really love that, and I'm so glad you said it, because I wish that I was told about all the options I had as a woman. But we're so conditioned to think that it has to be in a hospital. You have to have an OBGYN. And I have a history of blood clots, so I was technically high risk.
Sure.
But in retrospect, going through the whole process, and I would totally use a midwife if I ever had a second kid, because of my birth experience. And it wasn't bad, but I think it was so mental. Like you're saying, doulas take care of the mental space. So much of my stuff was like a mental concern and like emotional, as opposed to just like trusting myself and knowing what felt right in my body, and having, I think, a team or a support system in that parameter that would have bought into that and supported me more fully. I had a great OB. I can't knock. In the hospital I delivered, I was in Texas, very breastfeeding centric. Like you had to ask for formula. They were never going to offer it to you. Like all their nurses had some type of lactation training. So everybody was in there like helping you express your boobs, making sure baby latches. And I was one of the nurses who told me that I should go see someone because she didn't think my son was latching properly. So that was like a little gift I was very lucky about. But I think and I was stumbled into that hospital, and I was very fortunate. But I think that that's such a good point to raise and to like reiterate, that you have to do what feels right for you. And there are other things out there. Like just like doulas have been around since the dawn of time, so had midwives. And they have a specific skill set that is equal to any medical OBGYN to a degree, that can bring your baby and you through the birth experience healthy. And so I wish I could dive more into midwifery. Okay, last question for you. Do you have any advice, unsolicited, for new moms or soon to be moms?
Well, for moms that are pregnant and I just really explore your options, know your options, and don't say no to anything without researching and looking into it further. On a personal level, I work with a lot of moms, and I tell them their options, but I, reflect after the birth, and I say to myself, like, what if somebody didn't tell them that they could have done that? Then they wouldn't have done it, and they wouldn't have that experience. So my unsolicited advice is to just absorb all the information that you can, and look into it further and see where you land. I mean, all you can do is try and see where you land. and keep an open mind to things, because the way that we birthed 40, 50, 60 years ago is not the way that we have to birth
Mm-mm.
today. And your
Mm-mm.
mother's birth story doesn't have to be your birth story.
Amen.
And the way that your grandmother was treated, and the way that we birthed back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, it was back then straight up barbaric. We don't have to do that anymore. We don't have to succumb to barbaric birthing. We can have a dignified birth. We are entitled to that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Amen.
my other advice to moms is to take childbirth education bleh, childbirth education classes. Not the ones from the hospital, but the ones that are online. I love, like, there's a hypnobirthing class that is up in Minnesota. I have that on my website. There's the Mom and Natural Childbirth Ed class that's
Love that book.
virtual. Love that. I follow the Badass Mother Birther. Love her. She has a childbirth education class that's virtual. And she gets down to the nitty gritty of all the good stuff. So
Ooh.
you don't have to go to a hospital. And I say this because I am a childbirth educator. And so I know what their curriculum is and what they offer in a hospital setting, because I've taught it. So I always recommend families to take childbirth education classes, read all the books, watch documentaries. There's an awesome documentary called The Business of Being Born.
Huh.
Love that. I believe it's on Netflix, but Google it. The Business of Being Born. It was put out by Ricky Lake. Love her. I don't know if she's a midwife anymore, but she did get her midwife credential.
Oh, that's
Fun
a
fact
fun
about
fact.
Ricky. Yeah, fun fact about Ricky. Talk show to midwife. But watching that documentary rocked my world. I
Interesting.
did not leave, like my brain completely changed when I watched that documentary, and it lit a fire within me. And I knew that I watched it in between baby number 1 and baby number 2, and my second birth was significantly different than my first birth.
Wow.
So highly recommend The Business of Being Born. There's also a documentary called Why Not Home, and it is it is doctors, OBs, who have birthed at home. And you think that an OB would be front and center in the hospital, and they were, different reasoning on that, on why they chose a home birth, but that's pretty empowering. And I love the tone of that documentary. And then I also recommend the Milky Way movie. That is a breastfeeding documentary. And I think the Milky Way is kind of like the part 2 to The Business of Being Born.
Okay.
I love the Milky Way movie because it gives you the history of breastfeeding, and why do so many moms struggle with breastfeeding? Have we made things better, or have we made things worse with this idea, this archaic idea, that our boobs are non-functioning pieces of flesh that just happen to appear on our bodies? And everybody has their own breastfeeding journey, and some moms truly do struggle. But the question is, like, why are moms struggling so much? Why is something so natural so flippin' hard? And does it have to be hard? I love that documentary, and I recommend moms, like when I used to live in Minnesota, I lived there for 4 years. And so I would say, take a blizzard day and watch all the movies and take the notes, and then reflect back. Where was your brain and where was your heart before you watched all of these movies and obtained all this information? And where's your brain and where's your heart now? What is your intuition telling you? Or did it spark some question marks? Seek that information. Be hungry for knowledge and hungry for learning something new. Because again, you never know where you're going to land.
No, that's really important. I think, again, we just fall into this trap of, like, doctors are going to take care of us, and, like, there's actually so much stuff out there about, like, I don't know if it's a commonly known fact, but hospitals are like the worst place to be when you're sick, because there's so much stuff around, viruses, germs, like, ugh. So why would you want to birth in that environment anyway? I mean, and I did do that, so, like, but knowing things about hospitals. But I think that's so important that you're saying be hungry for the knowledge, because it is your birth and you can have it the way you want it. And that's you cannot say that enough. You cannot say it enough. And doulas can support you, midwives can get you there, doctors,
Totally.
nurses. Yes, like we're not slandering anybody here. We're just saying there's
No.
options for you
Yeah.
so that you can have the best experience. So I love that you're saying get all the information, then decide what's right for you. Because again, we're so, tunnel vision about what's the right thing to do in our society. And I think we're slowly chipping away at these archaic and outdated traditions. So I love what you're saying. I love it.
I think like your birth, you only get to do this once. You only get to birth your baby once. Why
Mm-hmm.
not? Why not make it the best story you could ever tell and have an epic birthing experience? Whatever that looks like for you, because
Mm-hmm.
we're all individual. Whatever that looks like for you, why not just make it the most amazing experience of your life? And wherever you land is wherever you land. But you only get to birth this baby once, so might as well take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Go do all the things you couldn't think you couldn't do.
Yeah.
And like awaken your inner badass. Like flip that switch, turn it on, and let's go. You never know. You never know what can happen.
Oh man, Jessica Gillan from, oh my gosh, I gotta look at this because there's too many B's.
Right?
Bellies, boobs, babies, and bliss. Blah 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 blah. I love a good alliteration too, so thank you for that. You can find her at jessicagillan.com. She actually has a million other credentials, like you're like a Leche League, Lactation, midwife assistant. So she's got some incredible information on her website. You can find her on Instagram at Bellies, Boobs, Babies, Bliss. And then Facebook is Bellies, Boobs, Babies, and Bliss, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Did I miss anything? How did they get a hold of you?
You Google me, and yeah, you can Google me, but typically it's jessicagillan.com, or you can Google Bellies, Boobs, Babies, and Bliss. The company name pretty much encompasses everything that I do. And
amen to that.
I offer a pretty full package that a lot of other doulas don't. It's my specialty. It's what I've been doing this whole time. But I do offer birthing photography. It's complimentary. So a lot of families have wanted to take advantage of that. And you can see examples of my birth photography that's on my website. And I do play a reel during our consultation meeting where you can see my birth photography, I guess you would say style, and how I roll. I don't go downtown. I don't take pictures of that stuff. It's really just like the magic and essence of your birth. So
nice. I mean, some people want the downtown.
If you do, it's cool. I won't judge. You just got to let me know because it's not going to happen unless you give me that signal.
Special requests. Thank you so much for being with us today. It was so awesome chatting with you, sharing all your doula knowledge and beyond, all the doula knowledge and beyond. And again, you can look her up, and we'll see you next time on Mama Knows Nada.
Thank you.